Welcome to Raw Tales Africa. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications because it will mean the world to me. Today's story will shock you to your core. Brace yourself. The mahogany table gleamed under the crystal chandelier as 12 nervous executives sat in stunned silence. At the head of the table stood a young woman in an impeccably tailored burgundy power suit, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, her dark eyes blazing with quiet authority. Gentlemen, her voice was calm but commanding. I am sure you are wondering why I have called this emergency board meeting. Mr. Kenneth Adesanya, the man who had fired her just 3 months ago for refusing his sexual advances, sat frozen in his chair, his face drained of all color. His hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the table. You, you can't be here, he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Security should have. Oh, Kenneth, she interrupted with a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. But I can be here. In fact, I own this building. I own your company. I own everything you thought was yours. The other executives exchanged bewildered glances. Just 3 months ago, this woman had been cleaning their offices, serving their coffee, enduring their condescending remarks. Now she stood before them as their superior, holding documents that would change everything. My name is Chidinma Okpara, she announced, her voice echoing in the silent room. And I am about to show you what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. Kenneth's face went from pale to green. He knew that name. Every businessman in Lagos knew that name. Okpara Industries, the rival company that had been systematically dismantling his empire piece by piece. Impossible, he breathed. You are just a maid, Chidinma finished, raising an eyebrow. Yes, I was. And you fired me for refusing to become your victim. But Kenneth, you made one fatal mistake. You never asked who I really was. But this story started 3 months earlier when a young woman named Chidinma walked into Kenneth Adesanya's office building, wearing a simple uniform and carrying cleaning supplies, with a secret that would eventually destroy the man who dared to prey on her. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cramped one-room apartment as Chidinma Okpara carefully folded her cleaning uniform. At 26, she possessed a quiet elegance that her modest surroundings couldn't diminish. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, the bearing of someone accustomed to better circumstances but too proud to complain about temporary hardship. Chidinma, are you sure about this job? Asked her roommate, Blessing, watching her friend prepare for another day of what seemed like degrading job. You have a master's degree in business administration. Why are you cleaning offices? Chidinma paused, her reflection catching in the cracked mirror on the wall. The woman staring back had intelligent eyes that held secrets, pain, and an unshakable determination. Sometimes, Blessing, we have to humble ourselves to see the truth about people, she replied, adjusting her head wrap. Besides, honest work is never degrading. What Blessing didn't know, what no one in Lagos knew, was that Chidinma Okpara was the sole heir to Okpara Industries, a multi-billion naira conglomerate that her late father, Chief Emeka Okpara, had built from nothing. She had been working as a maid for the past 2 months, not out of necessity but as part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Adesanya Enterprises occupied 3 floors of a gleaming tower in Victoria Island. The company deals in real estate, construction, and import-export, All industries where Chief Okpara had once dominated before his mysterious death 2 years ago. Kenneth Adesanya, the country's 45-year-old CEO, was everything Chidinma had expected and was: tall, well-dressed, and handsome in a superficial way. He carried himself with the arrogance of a man who had never faced real consequences for his actions. His expensive cologne couldn't mask the stench of his corruption, and his charming smile couldn't hide the predatory gleam in his eyes. "You must be the new cleaner," he said, looking Chidinma up and down with an appreciation that made her skin crawl. "I am Kenneth Adesanya. I own this place." "Good morning, sir. I am Chidinma," she replied, keeping her voice respectfully quiet while internally noting his immediate objectification of her. "Chidinma," he repeated, letting her name roll off his tongue in a way that felt like a violation. Beautiful name for a beautiful woman. I have a feeling we're going to get along very well. The other employees, mostly men in expensive suits, barely acknowledged her presence, except to back orders or make crude comments they thought she couldn't hear. To them, she was invisible, which was exactly what she wanted. But there was one exception. "Please sit with me," offered Amaka, a young accountant with kind eyes and a small smile. "I hate eating alone." Chidinma hesitated. Fraternizing with the staff wasn't part of her plan, but something about Amaka's genuine warmth made her reconsider. "Are you sure?" "I'm just the cleaning lady," Chioma said, testing the waters. "And I am just an accountant," Amaka laughed. "But we are both human beings trying to make an honest living. Besides, I could use a friend around here." As they shared a simple meal of rice and stew, Amaka began to open up about the toxic environment at Adesanya Enterprises. "Mr. Kenneth likes to think he is God's gift to women," Amaka whispered, glancing around nervously. "He is not a safe man to be alone with." The last cleaning lady quit suddenly. She wouldn't say why, but she looked terrified when she left. Chidinma filed this information away carefully. "Has anyone reported him?" "To who?" Amaka scoffed bitterly. "He owns the HR department. He owns everything. The few women who tried to speak up were either fired or worse." "Was?" Amaka's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Blacklisted. Threatened. One girl said he had connections that could make her disappear if she didn't quiet." That evening, as Chidinma sat in her small apartment, she opened her laptop and began typing notes. Every conversation, every overheard phone call, every document she had glimpsed while emptying trash cans, it all went into a detailed report. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. "The final papers are ready. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" She typed back, "More sure than ever. Give me 2 more weeks." Chidinma was emptying the wastebasket in Kenneth's office when she heard footsteps behind her. She had deliberately stayed late, knowing he often walked past normal hours. It was time to see just how predatory he really was. "Working late again, I see." His voice made her freeze. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, his tie loosened, his jacket off, looking at her with undisguised hunger. "Just finishing up, sir," she replied, maintaining her professional demeanor while every instinct screamed at her to run. He closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet office. "You know, Chidinma, I've been watching you," he said, moving closer. "You are different from the other cleaners we have had, more refined." "Thank you, sir," she said carefully, trying to edge toward the door. You're educated, aren't you? I can tell by the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. His eyes traveled up and down her body in a way that made her feel violated. What's a woman like you doing cleaning offices? Honest work, sir. I need a job. Of course you do, he smiled, but it was a smile of a shark, and I need companionship. I think we could help each other. The implication hung in the air like poison. Chidinma felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was exactly what she had expected, what she had prepared for. I don't understand, sir, she said, though the boss knew she understood perfectly. Kenneth stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. I think you do. You're a smart woman, Chidinma. Smart enough to know that life could be much easier for you if you are friendly to the right people. He reached out to touch her face and she stepped back sharply. Sir, I think there has been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, he interrupted, his voice hardening. I am offering you an opportunity, a chance to move up in the world. All you have to do is be nice to me. Very nice. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't. Can't or won't. His friendly facade dropped completely, revealing the predator beneath. Do you know how many women would kill for the chance I am giving you? I am sure there are many, sir, but I am not one of them. Chidinma said firmly, trying to get past him to the door. He grabbed her wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. You are making a mistake, Chidinma. A big mistake. For a moment, she considered dropping her act, revealing who she really was, watching him crumble as he realized what he had just done. But that would end her investigation prematurely. She needed more evidence, more proof of his systematic abuse. Please, let me go, sir, she said quietly. He held her for another moment, his eyes filled with rage and frustrated lust, then released her with a shove that sent her stumbling backward. Get out, he snarled, and think about what I have offered you, because next time I won't be so patient. Chidinma left the office with her heart pounding, but her resolve stronger than ever. She had him on record now. The small recording device hidden in her cleaning supplies had captured everything. You are playing with fire, Blessing said, pacing the small room as Chidinma played back the recording. This man is dangerous. He could hurt you. He is already hurting people, Chidinma replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Someone has to stop him. But why does it have to be you? You could just be who you are. Use your real power. Chidinma was quiet for a long moment, staring at a faded photograph on the nightstand. A picture of her with her father at her university program. Chief Emeka Okpara had been a giant of a man, not just in stature but in character. He had built his empire through hard work and integrity, always treating his employees with respect regardless of their position. My father used to tell me that power without character is destruction waiting to happen, she said softly. Kenneth Adesanya has power, but no character. He is destroying lives every day, and no one is stopping him because his victims are just maids, just secretaries, just women who can't fight back. So you are fighting back for them. I am fighting back for everyone he has ever hurt and everyone he might hurt in the future. The next morning, Chidinma returned to work as usual, but something had changed. Kenneth's behavior became more aggressive, more pointed. He would call her into his office for trivial tasks, stand too close, make inappropriate comments. Each incident was carefully recorded, each violation documented. Other employees began to notice. Some, like Amaka, looked at Chidinma with sympathy and concern. Others seemed to enjoy the show, placing bets on how long she would last before either giving in or quitting like the others. She's pretty enough, she heard one of Kenneth's executives say during a meeting she was cleaning around. But she seemed stubborn. Kenneth will break her, another replied with a laugh. He always does. But as the days passed, it became clear that Kenneth's patience was wearing thin. His advances became more brazen, his threats more explicit, and Chidinma, playing her role to perfection, continued to resist while gathering evidence that would eventually bring him down. The tension in the office was palpable. Everyone knew what was happening, but no one dared to intervene. They all watched and waited to see who would win, the predator or his prey. What they didn't know was that the prey was actually the hunter, and the trap was almost ready to spring. The atmosphere in the office had grown toxic. Kenneth's frustration with Chidinma's continued resistance had made him more aggressive toward everyone, but especially toward her. He seemed to take pleasure in humiliating her in front of others, as if her refusal to submit was a personal insult that demanded public retribution. Chidinma, his voice boomed across the office floor. Get in here now. She was mopping the hallway when he called, and she could feel every eye in the office watching as she put down her mop and walked to his office. The other employees exchanged knowing glances. They had seen this pattern before. You missed a spot in the conference room yesterday, Kenneth said once she entered his office. He didn't bother looking up from his computer, his tone dripping with disdain. I'm sorry, sir. I will go clean it right away. No, he said sharply, finally looking at her with cold eyes. You will clean it after hours, when everyone else has gone home. Just you and me. The threat was barely veiled. Chidinma felt her pulse quicken, but she maintained her composure. Sir, I prefer to work during regular hours. I don't care what you prefer, he interrupted, standing up and moving around his desk toward her. You work when I tell you to work. You do what I tell you to do, or you find another job. Yes, sir, she replied quietly, though inside she was cataloging every word for a growing file of evidence. As she turned to leave, he grabbed her arm again, his grip deliberately painful. And Chidinma, think carefully about your attitude. I have been more than patient with you, but my patience has limits. That evening, Chidinma did stay late, but she wasn't alone. Hidden in her cleaning supplies was a small camera, positioned to capture whatever Kenneth might try. She had also texted her lawyer with her location and a request to call the police if she didn't check in within 2 hours. Kenneth appeared at exactly 7:30 p.m. when the building was empty except for security guards who had long ago learned not to ask questions about his after-hours activities. Good, you are here, he said, his voice carrying a satisfaction that made her skin crawl. I was beginning to think you might have quit like the others. I need this job, sir, she said, continuing to wipe down the conference table while staying alert to his every movement. Yes, I know you do, he replied, circling her like a predator. Single women like you. It is hard out there, isn't it? Especially when you don't have any connections. He emphasized the last word in a way that made his meaning crystal clear. I manage fine, sir. Do you? He moved closer, backing her against the wall. Because I could make things so much easier for you. A nice apartment in Ikoyi, a car, beautiful clothes. All you have to do is be grateful. Sir, please. Please what? His hand slammed against the wall beside her head, trapping her. Please give you everything you've ever wanted. Please make you a kettleman instead of cleaning lady. Please respect my boundaries, she said firmly, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. His face twisted with rage. Boundaries. You don't get to have boundaries. You are nothing. You are nobody. I could destroy you with a phone call. Then why don't you? The words slipped out before she could stop them, fueled by anger and frustration. Kenneth's eyes narrowed dangerously. Because I like the chase, but my patience is running out, Chidinma. Soon, you will have no choice. Submit willingly or be forced to submit. You have to quit, Amaka whispered urgently as she and Chidinma ate lunch together. I've seen this before. He is escalating. Soon he will. Soon he will what? Chidinma asked, though she already knew the answer. He will force himself on you, Amaka said bluntly, and then he will either fire you or make your life so miserable that you will quit. Either way, you will be destroyed and he will move on to the next victim. What if I reported to the police? Amaka laughed bitterly. With what proof? Your word against he is Kenneth Adesoya. He has money, connections, lawyers. You are a maid. Who do you think they will believe? So I should just let him win? I am saying you should save yourself while you still can, Amaka pleaded. Please, Chidinma, I've seen what he does to women who resist him for too long. I don't want to see it happen to you. That afternoon, Kenneth asked Chidinma to his office again, but this time he wasn't alone. Sitting across from him was a tall, heavy-set man in an expensive suit with cold, calculating eyes. Chidinma, Miss Mr. Emeka, Kenneth said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He is a business associate of mine. The man looked her up and down with the same predatory gaze she had come to recognize in Kenneth. She's pretty, he said, as if she weren't standing right there. Young, healthy, very healthy, Kenneth agreed, and very uncooperative. I can fix that, Miss Emeka said with a laugh that made Chidinma's blood run cold. I have ways of making stubborn women more agreeable. What do you think, Chidinma? Kenneth asked, his voice deceptively casual. Would you like to meet some of Miss Emeka's other friends? I am sure they would love to get to know you better. The threat was explicit now. Chidinma realized with growing horror that Kenneth wasn't just a sexual predator. He was connected to something much darker, much more dangerous. I need to get back to work, she said quietly, but her voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Yes, you do, Kenneth said. But remember, Chidinma, everyone has a breaking point. We'll find yours. You have to end this now, Blessing said after Chidinma told her about the meeting with Mr. Emeka. This isn't just sexual harassment anymore. These men are traffickers. They are talking about selling you. I know, Chidinma said quietly, staring at her laptop screen where she had been organizing all the evidence she had collected. Photos, recordings, documents. She had enough to destroy Kenneth, but Was it enough to stop the entire network? Then why are you still going back tomorrow? Because if I don't stop him, he will just move on to the next woman, and the next, and the next. Chidima's voice was firm, but Blessing could see the fear in her eyes. What if he moves on you first? What if tomorrow is the day he stops playing games? Chidima was quiet for a long moment. Then, tomorrow is the day I stop playing games too. The next morning, she dressed more carefully than usual, adding a small panic button to her cleaning supplies and making sure her phone was fully charged. She also sent a detailed email to her lawyer with all the evidences she had collected so far, along with the instructions to release it to the media if anything happened to her. The office felt different that day. Employees whispered in concerns, their eyes darting nervously toward Kenneth's office. Something was building and everyone could feel it. Kenneth himself was in a foul mood, snapping at everyone and slamming doors. He had made several phone calls behind closed doors, his voice raised in anger. Whatever he was planning, it was happening soon. Around noon, Amaka approached Chidinma with tears in her eyes. "I am quitting," she whispered. "I can't watch this anymore. I can't stand by and do nothing while it destroys you." "You are not destroying me by leaving," Chidinma assured her. "You are protecting yourself. That is what you should do." "Come with me," Amaka begged. "Please, there are other jobs, other companies. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to prove a point." "It's not about proving a point anymore," Chidinma said softly. "It's about justice." At 2 p.m., Kenneth's secretary announced that he wanted to see Chidinma in the conference room. Not his office, the conference room. The same room where he had cornered her before, where the cameras were hidden. This is it, she thought, her heart racing as she walked down the hallway. Whatever he is planning, it is happening now. Kenneth was waiting for her, along with Mr. Emeka and two other men she didn't recognize. All the blinds were closed, and the door was shut behind her as soon as she entered. "Sit down, Chidinma," Kenneth said, his voice deadly calm. "I prefer to stand, sir." "I wasn't asking," he said sharply. "Sit down." She remained standing, her eyes moving between the four men who had positioned themselves to block all exits. "You have been very disappointing, Chidinma," Kenneth continued. "I have tried to be reasonable with you, tried to offer you opportunities that most women would kill for, but you have thrown it all back in my face." "I have simply tried to do my job, sir." "Your job?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your job is whatever I say it is, and today, your job is to finally lend some respect." Mr. Emeka stepped forward, pulling out his phone and pointing it at her. "Some clients like to see the merchandise before they buy," he said with a grotesque smile, "especially the stubborn ones. It helps them decide how much discipline will be required." Chidinma's blood turned to ice. They weren't just threatening her anymore. They were preparing to follow through. "You are making a mistake," she said quietly, her hand slowly moving toward the panic button in her pocket. "The only mistake here is yours," Kenneth snarled. "You had chances to do this the easy way. Now we do it the hard way." The four men began to close in on Chidinma, their intentions clear. This was the moment she had been dreading and preparing for. Her hand found the panic button just as Kenneth launched toward her. But instead of pressing it, she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She smiled. "You know what, Kenneth? She said, her voice suddenly different, stronger, more authoritative. You are absolutely right. I have been disappointing. The man paused, confused by her sudden change in demeanor. I've been disappointing because I've been playing a role instead of being myself. And I think it is time you all met the real Chidinma Okpara. Kenneth's face went pale at the mention of her last name. Okpara, as in, as in Chief Emeka Okpara. Yes, she said, pulling out her phone and dialing a number. Daddy always said that the best way to catch a rat is to let it think it is safe in its hole. The phone connected and she spoke clearly. Security, this is Chidinma Okpara. I need you to come to the conference room on the 15th floor of the Adesoya Enterprises building immediately and bring the police. Kenneth's leg nearly gave out beneath him. That's impossible. Chief Okpara is dead. He died 2 years ago. Yes, he did, Chidinma said sadly. And I have spent the last 2 years investigating everyone who might have been involved in his murder, including you, Kenneth. The room erupted into chaos. Mr. Emeka and his associates tried to rush for the door, but it was already too late. The sound of heavy footsteps in the hallway announced the arrival of security and law enforcement. You see, gentlemen, Chidinma continued, her voice calm despite the pandemonium around her. When you own 60% of this building, security tends to respond very quickly to your calls. Kenneth collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. 60%? But how? Shell companies, she explained matter-of-factly. Very useful things. I've been buying up shares of this building for months, waiting for the right moment to reveal myself. And thanks to your behavior today, I now have everything I need to destroy not just you, but your entire network. The door burst open and a team of security guards flooded in, followed by several police officers. Behind them came a woman in an expensive suit, Chidinma's lawyer. Miss Okpara, the lawyer said with a slight smile. I take it the operation was successful. More successful than I could have hoped, Chidinma replied, finally allowing herself to relax. We have them on attempted kidnapping, conspiracy to commit human trafficking, and about a dozen other charges, plus all the evidence we have collected over the past 2 months. As the police handcuffed Kenneth and his associates, he looked up at Chidinma with a mixture of disbelief and hatred. You are not who you pretended to be, he spat. No, she agreed. But neither are you. The difference is I was pretending to be less than I am. You were pretending to be more. Word of Kenneth's arrest had spread through the building like wildfire. Employees gathered in the lobby, whispering among themselves as police cars lined the street outside. The local news had already arrived, cameras rolling as reporters tried to piece together what had happened. Chidinma stood near the elevators, no longer in her cleaning uniform but in a tailored business suit that had been delivered by her assistant. The transformation was stunning. Gone was the humble maid, replaced by a confident CEO who commanded attention without saying a word. Amaka pushed through the crowd, her eyes wide with shock. Chidinma, is it really you? It is really me, Chidinma confirmed with a warm smile. Though I suppose I owe you an apology for not telling you the truth. You are Chief Okpara's daughter, Emeka breathed, the heiress to Okpara Industries. But why? Why were you working as a maid? Before Chidinma could answer, a lawyer approached with a folder of documents. The arrests have been made, she reported. Kenneth Adesanya and his three associates are in custody. We have also executed search warrants on their homes and offices based on the evidence you provided. And the trafficking ring, we have identified at least 12 victims over the past 3 years, and we're expecting more to come forward now that the story is breaking. The police are confident they can shut down the entire operation. Amaka gasped. Trafficking ring? Kenneth was involved in human trafficking, among other things, Chidinma said grimly. Sexual assault, extortion, money laundering, and possibly murder. Murder? Chidinma's expression darkened. My father died under suspicious circumstances 2 years ago. Heart attack, they said, but the timing was convenient for several of his business rivals, including Kenneth. The lobby felt silent as employees processed this revelation. The man they had worked for, the man they had respected and feared, was not just a predator but a killer. Ma'am, one of the security guards approached. The media is requesting a statement. Chidinma looked out at the crowd of reporters gathering outside, then at the faces of the employees around her. People who had witnessed her humiliation, who had remained silent while she was abused, who had assumed she was powerless to fight back. Tell them I will hold a press conference in 1 hour, she said, and make sure everyone who works in this building is invited to attend. A makeshift podium had been set up in the plaza outside the building, surrounded by reporters, cameras, and hundreds of employees from various companies housed in the tower. Chidinma stood behind the microphone, poised and professional, while her legal team flanked her on either side. Good afternoon, she began, her voice carrying clearly across the plaza. My name is Chidinma Okpara, and I am the CEO and majority shareholder of Okpara Industries. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people recognized the name of the Nigeria's largest conglomerate. For the past 2 months, I have been working undercover as a cleaning lady in the offices of Adesanya Enterprises, gathering evidence of systematic sexual harassment, assault, and human trafficking perpetrated by Kenneth Adesanya and his associates. A reporter raised her hand. Miss Okpara, why didn't you simply use your position and resources to investigate these crimes through official channels? Because, Chidinma replied, the women who were being victimized didn't have access to official channels. They were maids, secretaries, clerks, women without power, without connections, without voices. The only way to truly understand their experience was to live it myself. Another reporter called out, what evidence do you have of these alleged crimes? Chidinma's lawyer stepped forward. We have audio and video recordings of sexual harassment and assault, documentation of financial crimes, and testimony from over a dozen victims. We have also uncovered evidence linking Mr. Adesanya to a human trafficking operation that has been active for at least 3 years. And the murder allegation regarding your father, Chidinma's expression hardened. My father, Chief Emeka Okpara, died suddenly 2 years ago, just days before he was scheduled to expose corruption in several major companies, including Adesanya Enterprises. The official cause of death was listed as a heart attack, but we now have evidence suggesting he was poisoned. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. The investigation into my father's death is ongoing, Chidinma continued. But I can tell you that justice will be served, no matter how long it takes or how powerful these people involved think they are. An employee from Adesanya Enterprises raised her hand. Miss Okpara, what will happen to the company now? Will we all lose our jobs? Chidima's expression softened. That is a very good question, and I understand your concern. As of this morning, Okpara Industries has initiated a hostile takeover of Adesanya Enterprises. The company will be restructured and all current employees will be evaluated based on their merits and character, not on their willingness to turn a blind eye to criminal behavior. She paused, looking directly at several employees she recognized from her time as a maid. I want to be very clear about something. Over the past 2 months, I observed how each of you treated someone you believed to be beneath you in status. Some of you were kind, respectful, and decent. Others were not. That behavior will be remembered as we move forward. The holding cells at the Victoria Island police station had never housed such high-profile suspects. Kenneth Adesanya sat alone in his cell, still wearing his expensive suit but looking nothing like the powerful man he had been that morning. His hands shook as he stared at the concrete walls, reality finally sinking in. A guard approached his cell. "You have a visitor." Kenneth looked up to see Chidinma standing outside his cell, flanked by 2 police officers. She looked every inch the powerful businesswoman she had always been, her presence filling the small space with quiet authority. "Hello, Kenneth," she said calmly. "You," he spat, struggling to his feet. "You lying, manipulative, careful," one of the officers warned. "She is here out of courtesy. Mind your tongue." Kenneth glared at Chidinma through the bars, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. "Why?" he demanded. "Why go through all this charade? You could have destroyed me from the beginning with your money and power. Why become a maid?" Chidinma studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes reflecting a mixture of disgust and pity. "Because I needed to see who you really were," she said quietly. "When my father died, I inherited his business, but I also inherited his enemies. I knew someone had killed him, but I didn't know who or why." She stepped closer to the bars, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "For 2 years, I investigated from the shadows. Shell companies, private investigators, forensic accountants. I used every resource at my disposal. But you know what I discovered, Kenneth? The most dangerous predators are the ones who hide behind respectability. And the only way to catch them is to give them what they think is easy prey." Kenneth's face had gone pale again. "Your father, he was going to expose the consortium." "The consortium?" Chidinma's eyes sharpened. "Tell me about the consortium, Kenneth." But Kenneth had already said too much. He clamped his mouth shut and turned away from her. "It doesn't matter," Chidinma continued. "We have your computer, your phone records, your bank account. We'll find everything, with or without your cooperation. The only question is whether you want to spend the rest of your life in prison, or if you want to help us catch the people who murdered my father's mother." Kenneth laughed bitterly. "You think they'll let me testify? You think I will live long enough to see a courtroom? You are more afraid of them than you are of me," Chidinma observed. "That tells me everything I need to know about how deep this goes." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Kenneth, the woman you tried to assault today, The maid you thought you could destroy. She just became your new boss. Every company you have ever owned, every property you have ever bought, every asset you have ever hidden, it all belongs to me now, and I am going to use it to make sure no other woman ever suffers what your victim suffered. The Okpara Industries building was a towering monument to legitimate success, its glass facade reflecting the Lagos skyline as the sun set over the city. Chidinma stood in her father's old office, now her office, looking out at the city where she had just won a major battle in a larger war. Her assistant, Grace, knocked on the door. Ma'am, the victim's advocate is here. Send her in. A middle-aged woman entered, carrying a thick folder of documents. Ms. Okpara, I am Sarah Adebayo from the Women's Rights Coalition. I wanted to thank you personally for what you have done today. It is far from over, Chidinma replied, gesturing for her to sit. How many women have come forward since the news broke? 17 so far, and we expect more. Some of them have been carrying this trauma for years, too afraid to speak up because they thought no one would believe them. Chidinma's law tightened. What do they need? Legal representation, counseling, job placement assistance. Many of them were blacklisted after refusing Kenneth's advances, and they have been struggling to find work ever since. Done. Set up a fund, the Okpara Foundation for Women's Empowerment. I want every victim to have access to the best lawyers, therapists, and job opportunities available, and I want it funded in perpetuity. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Miss Okpara, this is incredible. You are going to change so many lives. They changed mine first, Chidinma said softly. For 2 months, I lived as they lived, feared what they feared, felt what they felt. The least I can do is ensure they never have to feel powerless again. The building that had once housed Kenneth's empire now bore new signage. Okpara Industries, Lagos Division. The transformation had been swift and thorough. Corrupt executives had been fired. Ethical employees had been promoted, and new policies ensured that workplace harassment would never again be tolerated or covered up. Amaka, now promoted to finance director, stood in what used to be Kenneth's office, overseeing the removal of his personal effects. Everything would be donated to charity. Even his expensive furniture would be put to better use elsewhere. It's hard to believe it's only been 3 weeks, she said to Chidinma, who had come to check on the transition. 3 weeks since the arrest, but 2 years since this all began, Chidinma corrected. The day my father died was the day I started planning Kenneth's downfall. I just didn't know it would lead me to this moment. Do you regret it? The months of pretending to be someone else? Chidinma considered the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that women in positions like yours and mine are so rare that a man like Kenneth could operate with impunity for years. But I don't regret the method. Sometimes you have to descend into darkness to bring light to hidden places. 1 month later, the courthouse steps were packed with reporters and supporters as Chidinma emerged from Kenneth's sentencing hearing. He had been found guilty on all counts: sexual assault, conspiracy to commit human trafficking, money laundering, and accessory to murder. The consortium he had tried to protect had ultimately abandoned him, leaving him to face justice alone. 25 years to life, Chidinma's lawyer announced to the gathered crowd. Justice has been served. But Chidinma knew that Kenneth's sentence was just the beginning. The consortium was still out there, still operating, still preying on the vulnerable. Our father's murder had been solved, but the system that enabled it remained largely intact. A young woman approached her as she walked down the courthouse steps. She was barely 20, wearing a simple dress and carrying herself with quiet dignity Chidinma remembered from her own days in disguise. "Miss Okpara," the woman said nervously, "my name is Kemi. I used to work as a maid for one of Kenneth's business partners. After seeing what you did, I want to come forward too." Chidinma stopped walking and gave the young woman her full attention. "Tell me." "His name is Chief Adebayo. He owns several hotels in Abuja. He does the same things Kenneth did, but he is more careful, more connected. I tried to report him once, but the police wouldn't listen." "They will listen now," Chidinma assured her, "and you won't face him alone." The mahogany table that had once witnessed Kenneth's humiliation now hosted a very different kind of meeting. Around it sat the board of directors of the newly expanded Okpara Industries, along with representatives from women's rights organizations, law enforcement agencies, and government corruption units. The Okpara initiative has now led to the arrest and conviction of 43 individuals involved in various forms of exploitation and corruption. Reported the lead investigator, "We have identified and shut down trafficking rings in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Kano." Chidinma nodded approvingly. "And the victims?" "Over 200 women have received legal assistance, counseling, and job placement through the foundation. 80% have found stable employment, and many have started their own businesses with microloans from the program." "What about prevention?" Sarah Adebayo, now the foundation's director, consulted her notes. "We have implemented workplace safety programs in over 500 companies across Nigeria. Anonymous reporting systems, mandatory training, and zero tolerance policies. The corporate culture is slowly changing." "Slowly isn't fast enough," Chidinma said firmly. "What else can we do?" "Education," suggested one of the board members. "Start at the university level. Teach young men about consent and respect. Teach young women about their rights and their power." "Fund it," Chidinma said immediately. "I want programs in every major university in the country." After the meeting ended, Chidinma sat alone in the empty boardroom, looking at a photograph of her late father that now hung on the wall. Chief Emeka Okpara smiled back at her from the frame, his eyes twinkling with the pride he had always shown in his daughter's accomplishments. "I hope I made you proud, Daddy," she whispered. The door opened, and Grace entered with a cup of tea and a small stack of letters. "The evening correspondence," Grace said, setting them down on the table. "Most are thank you notes from women who have been helped by the foundation." Chidinma picked up the first letter and began to read. "Dear Miss Okpara, my name is Blessing, and I work as a secretary in Kaduna. After hearing your story on the news, I found the courage to report my supervisor for sexual harassment. Because of the changes you have made, the company took my complaint seriously and he was fired. For the first time in 2 years, I can go to work without fear. Thank you for showing us that we don't have to suffer in silence." She set the letter down and picked up another. "Miss Okpara, I am a university student studying business administration. Your story has inspired me to change my major to law so that I can help other women fight for justice. You showed us that power is not just about having money or connections, it is about having the courage to stand up for what is right. One by one, she read through the letters, each one a testament to the ripple effect of her actions. Women who had found their voices, men who had examined their behavior, companies that had changed their cultures, all because one woman had been willing to sacrifice her comfort and safety to expose the truth. Chidinma walked through the bustling Balogun market, not as a CEO or an heiress, but as a woman who had learned the value of seeing the world from every perspective. She was dressed simply, her natural hair uncovered, moving through the crowd with the same grace she had shown in boardrooms and courthouses. She stopped at a small store where a young woman was selling handmade jewelry. The woman looked up with a bright smile that seemed familiar. "These are beautiful," Chidinma said, examining a delicate silver bracelet. "Thank you, ma. I made them myself," the woman replied proudly. "I just started this business 6 months ago." "What did you do before?" The woman's expression grew serious. "I was a maid, but after what happened with that Kenneth man, after seeing how Miss Chidinma Okpara stood up for women like us, I decided I deserved better. I used a micro loan from our foundation to start this business." Chidinma smiled, her heart full. "And how is it going?" "Better than I ever imagined. I employed 3 other women now, all of us former maids who wanted a better life. We support each other, protect each other." She held up the bracelet. "This one is special. I made it to honor Miss Okpara. I may never meet her, but she changed my life." "I'm sure she would be honored," Chidinma said, purchasing the bracelet and slipping it onto her wrist. As she walked away from the store, Chidinma reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. A year ago, she had been consumed with anger and grief, focused on revenge and justice. Today, she was focused on something more powerful: hope. The fight was far from over. There were still predators to expose, still victims to help, still systems to change. But for the first time since her father's death, Chidinma felt truly optimistic about the future. She pulled out her phone and called Grace. "Schedule a meeting with the education ministry," she said. "I want to discuss implementing anti-harassment programs in secondary schools." "Yes, ma'am. Anything else?" Chidinma looked back at the jewelry store, where the young entrepreneur was helping another customer with the same bright smile. "Actually, yes. I want to increase the microloan program budget by 50%. I want to start a mentorship program pairing successful businesswomen with women who are just starting their own enterprises." "I will set up the meetings," Grace promised. As Chidinma ended the call and continued through the market, she felt her father's presence beside her, his voice echoing in her memory. "True power, my daughter, is not in what you can take from others, but in what you can give to those who need it most." She had started this journey as a daughter seeking justice for her father's murder. She was ending it as a woman committed to ensuring that no other daughter would have to fight these battles alone. The maid who had refused to be broken had become the CEO who refused to let others break, and her story was just beginning. This story reminds us that strength isn't always loud and power isn't always visible. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is endure, gather evidence, and wait for the right moment to strike back. But remember, you don't have to face predators and abusers alone. There are resources, there are people who will listen, and there are ways to get justice. Never let anyone convince you that your voice doesn't matter because of your job, your status, or your circumstances. Every woman deserves respect. Every woman deserves safety, and every woman has the power to change her story and the world around her. If you or someone you know is facing harassment or abuse, please reach out for help. The contact information for support organizations is in the description below. Thank you for watching Raw Tales Africa. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this story with anyone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never forget your worth.